Then I share. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see the slides okay. Is that correct? Is that okay for everybody? Okay, Dr. Almas, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Robin. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, from whichever part of the world you're engaging with us from. So thank you for being here, taking out the time to be here. We really appreciate your presence. I'm Dr. Almas Tazeen. I'm the senior researcher and consultant at the Center for Organizational Excellence Research. And I'm going to be hosting the session for you along with Dr. Robin Mann. Next. So this is the structure of today's webinar. We'll present a little background, the timeline, guidance, tips, and the Q&A session. So if you have any queries or any questions, you can note them down and we'll address them at the end. Next. So again, a very, very warm welcome to all of you. So we're looking forward to the session and I'm sure you're looking forward to it too. So we'll present a little background. So the organizers for the International Best Practice Competition are the Center for Organizational Excellence Research, the Best Practice Improvement Resource, and the Global Benchmarking Network. Next.
Hold on. Not sure what happened there. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The partners for this International Best Practice Competition is the Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce and Industries with the Abu Dhabi International Center for Organizational Excellence, which administers the Sheikh Khalifa Excellence Award. So we have a very prestigious partner support with us. The other supporters from all around the world, as you can see on the screen, we are really thankful and appreciate their contribution to the awards events over the years. The supporters also provide us with the jury members and their expertise. So thank you to all the supporters. Next. So the Center for Organizational Excellence Research has founded and it organizes the International Best Practice Competition. The competition was founded in 2012. As a physical event, it started, but since 2021, we've organized it as a virtual event. And in this time, in this whole period of so many years, over a decade, we have received over 800 applications from all over the world, from 27 countries, 27 plus countries. Really good learning and exchange of ideas and thoughts and events and innovation, a lot of learning over these years. Dr. Robin Mann is the director for Center for Organizational Excellence Research. He's also the chair of the International Best Practice Competition and the founder and chairman of the Global Benchmarking Network. So I'll hand over the mic to Dr. Robin Mann, who will walk us through the International Best Practice Competition, the processes, the timeline, the criteria, award criteria, and much more. So over to you, Dr. Robin.
Okay, thank you, Almas, and say welcome everybody to this session. Just a little bit of background on Centre for Organisational Excellence Research. We've been around a long time now, but our prime purpose is really to encourage organisations towards excellence, particularly through best practice sharing and learning. So we're sort of very prominent in terms of educating organisations on how to do benchmarking, how to learn from other organisations. And this was really why the International Best Practice Competition was started, to facilitate that learning, to give access to benchmarks and best practices to organisations, to help them to accelerate more quickly on their business excellence journey. So we obviously run international best practice competition. We do a lot of benchmarking training, a lot of benchmarking consultancy and assistance. We also run the bpr.com website resource, which has got lots of benchmarks and best practices inside it. And also advise countries as well in terms of national strategies for benchmarking, learning, and excellence too. And we've always got a research team as well doing PhD research on these topics. So as a yeah, if you can switch your mics off when you join the session, that would be great. Thank you. So when organizations become a participant in the international best practice competition, we automatically give them a membership of the bpr.com website resource. And really our IP for the bpr.com resource is that it contains all the best practice submissions from previous years who've entered the competition. So there's an awful lot of best practices in there that can be learned from by organizations. So this is the whole spirit of the competition, really. So if you participate in a competition, you're going to submit a written application of approximately 5 pages. You'll deliver a presentation of 8 minutes, and then they'll be shared later on after the competition finishes inside the bpr.com resource to help other organizations to learn from you, while at the same time you can get access to all those best practices too. Obviously, if there's anything commercially sensitive in your presentations, you can actually take them out before we actually publish them. There are actually 4 major awards and competitions that are part of the International Best Practice Competition. The prime one is just called the International Best Practice Competition itself. It's actually the simplest to enter because it is just organizations sharing a specific best practice, which could be on anything. It could be on governance, it could be on leadership, it could be on HR, it could be on customer service, it could be how they're utilizing AI, whatever it may be. It's something they think they're quite good at and would like to share their good work with others, get feedback on that best practice, and obviously recognition. And as I said previously, it's just a 5-page written application, 8-minute presentation. So we make it as simple as possible for as many best practices to be shared. Our other awards and recognition systems are a bit more sophisticated, because by their nature, they require organizations to have fully embedded the various principles espoused by those awards inside their organizations. So the organization-wide innovation award is more rigorous because it looks at how the whole organization is using innovation to drive its competitiveness edge. Similarly, we look at organizations who apply for the Environmental, Social and Governance Excellence Award, who are living and breathing ESG throughout the whole organization. And we also have awards specific to benchmarking as well, where benchmarking is embraced right throughout the whole organization. And then they need to describe how they do that. But this presentation today is mainly focused on the International Best Practice Competition, and this is what we get most entries for. We have a number of countries which actively act as a feeder into the International Best Practice Competition. Therefore, they host their own national best practice competitions and encourage organizations who do well in those national competitions to then go forward into the International Best Practice Competition. So that is the case for India, Iran, and the Philippines. And then we also have another 2 countries, New Zealand and Australia, where they've integrated their national best practice competitions directly into the International Best Practice Competition. So they encourage organizations from their countries to directly enter the International Best Practice Competition. And those entries which achieve the highest star ratings will automatically become the winners for their respective countries' national best practice competitions. Again, if your country doesn't currently have a national best practice competition and you think it would be of interest to you, then please let me know and we can work on making that happen. I keep clicking the wrong thing here, so go back. Yeah, the problem is I'm clicking some of these images and they're taking me to a different website page. They're not actually pictures. That's why I'm going somewhere else. Okay, should be working now. Hold on. Go back again. Okay, we can move forward. You can see my next slide now, I presume. Thank you. So when you participate in the International Best Practice Competition, all the best practices are assessed using a 7-star system. And again, this is to provide recognition, but also to provide organizations the opportunity to improve their practices over the years. So we have some entries where initially they enter the competition, they might score 3 or 4 stars, and in a few years' time they reach the level of 7 stars. An organization that scores 4 stars, that's considered to be a national best practice. Therefore, that best practice will be of interest to other organizations in their country. But to become an international best practice, they need to score 5 stars and above. And therefore, we believe that their work will be of interest to other organizations in other countries, with 7 stars being the pinnacle achievement where there's a wow factor about the best practice. It's unique or really delivering in terms of impact. There's something really special about it, exciting about it. So they're the various levels of certification, and we have experienced judges, obviously assessing organisations where they are with respect to these star ratings. Our main award prizes are as follows. Firstly, if any organisation achieves 7 stars, that's the maximum you can achieve. So they've done very well indeed. So this is the biggest celebration for any organisation achieving 7 stars. Doesn't matter what category it is in. It's just it's or what sort of business activity it is in. This is just a pinnacle achievement if you achieve 7 stars for that best practice. But we then have other awards as well. So we also have a winner certificate for the highest overall best practice star rating for an SME of 50 employees or less. And then we also have winner certificates for the highest star ratings in 21 IBPC categories of excellence. So across these 21 categories, if you have the highest star rating, then you would also win an award for that particular category. So a category winner could be rated less than 7 stars, but still win that category. You've got to actually be rated at least 5 stars, though, to be considered a category award winner. Otherwise, there'd be no category award winner for that particular category for that year, unless we get 5 stars or above, because ultimately we want to see international best practices. Normally, we do have a category winner for every single category. When we also have pioneer and excellent prizes to encourage organisations to submit more than one best practice and to encourage organisations to have best practices right throughout the whole organisation. So we have recognition for instance, organisations that have achieved the most number of 6 stars and above, and recognition for the organisation that achieved the most 5 stars and above and 4 stars and above. So again, encouraging you to embrace best practices and build this sort of journey towards excellence. So we believe there's lots of benefits in entering the competition. Yes, you get recognition against the star ratings. That's fabulous. But more than that, it should be motivating participating in a competition. And this is indeed why we call it a competition. It isn't like a football tournament in a sense. You enter and then you actually have your written application assessed, you deliver your presentation, and then you then have an opportunity to qualify to the final. We have a final where we have the 14 best of the best practices present. So that's why we try to engender some competition into the competition through sort of these qualifying rounds and develop that interest. But also the motivation comes from watching everybody else's presentation, because many of these presentations of best practice you see are mind-boggling. They're really impressive, and you can see the engagement of the teams involved. The competition also enables you to benchmark your best practices against others. We also promote your work as well. It doesn't matter what star rating you achieve. We try to promote you as much as we can through the social media channels. We provide feedback on your written application. So my team provides feedback on your written application to try and help you to improve your application before the jury see it. So when you first submit your written application, you get feedback just from my team, helping you to improve your application. So please take their advice, because the teams that generally do better actually make changes to their first submission based on our feedback. Then it's obviously assessed by the jury members, and the jury members also assess your video presentation, and you'd also participate in a Q&A session. I'll explain more about that later on. And again, participating in the competition, we hope you to build that culture of excellence. Because again, it's trying to stimulate you and encourage you to have more and more best practices inside your organization. The other thing is why we ask you to initially, when you fill in a form, ask you what topic or category your best practice fits in, is because that can guide us to decide which webinar session you're going to be presenting in, because we try and put similar practices together in a webinar session. And this enables you to also benchmark against similar practices yourself, which is very valuable. But it also means that we can get jury members who've got specific interest in that topic and expertise in that topic to assess those best practices in that area. As part of recognition, you're going to get verified certificates and badges. We believe they all look pretty nice. So we spend a lot of time designing these. So all your team members will get a certificate and a verified badge. These are examples of winners and participants of previous editions of the International Best Practice Competition from all around the world. As Dr. Alma said previously, we've had entries now from over 27 countries. We have photographs here of some of the best practice winners. Also, our team does a lot of international travel for our consultancy and our work. So if we're in your region and you've achieved a 7-star recognition, then we try to let you know we're in your region so we can meet you face to face and take a photograph with you. So that's always nice to do. So our international jury members, we now have over 65 of them. So these are guys with a lot of, or guys and ladies with a lot of expertise, and they are strongly vetted. We always make sure that there's no conflict of interest. So if a jury member, generally we exclude jury members from the same country as the presenters. Sometimes we allow that if we don't have enough jury members for that session, but again, we have to make sure they have no knowledge of your particular organisation, had no previous work experience working for your organisation. Okay, project timeline guidance here. So we're now at the round 1 stage, asking you to submit to the competition, and we actually have a number of calls for entries. So we're on our first call for entries where we call it the early bird application phase. And for those organizations that apply early by the 3rd of March, then we charge a cheaper fee. It's cheaper to apply. It's $385 to apply for the competition. To be honest, our running the competition, we cover our cost to run the competition. We think it's a very good thing to do to run the competition. So we try to keep costs down as low as possible. So that's the fee if you enter by the 3rd of March. Actually, the entries will remain open till the 5th, we think, to around the 5th of May. It depends how many entries we get. They might close earlier than that, but obviously we will increase the price as the time goes on. So if you want to take advantage of those prices, please apply as soon as possible. The other thing is, following on from that will be round 2. After you've submitted your application, you'll get feedback on that application, and we encourage you then to improve it based on the feedback you receive. And then it'll be ready to be assessed by the jury. The jury will assess your written application, and also they will assess your pre-recorded presentation, which you need to submit. And that is an 8-minute presentation. So it's not long, but it's sufficient to provide good information about your best practice. So once you submit that video presentation, you'll be allocated to a webinar session. Usually in a webinar session, there's up to 7 presentations, and I say generally on a similar topic. And then the jury will listen to your pre-recorded video in that session. You'll be invited along to that session, obviously. And then there'll be a Q&A session immediately after the presentation, where the jury can ask you questions for approximately 10 minutes. And they'll make a judgment based on your written application, your presentation, and the Q&A session. As a participant in the competition, you can attend all the webinar sessions, even the ones you're not involved in. Again, the whole purpose of this is to encourage organizations and help organizations to improve. If you successful as being identified as one of the strongest best practices from round 2, the jury will identify 25 potential finalists, and we'll let you know who they are. And then we'll have another jury review all those 25 potential finalists to to identify the 14 finalists. This is why it's competition. There's lots of expectation. Everybody's wondering whether in the top 25, top 14, and then we eventually find that we identify the top 14. And then again, we'll have different jury members. We'll go through the same sequence again of the written application, the pre-recorded presentation, now to different jury members who will ultimately recognise the top 14. And usually in that top 14, many of them will get 7-star recognition. And from that, we'll work back and calibrate everybody else's star ratings. And so we can announce everybody else's star ratings by August, and the winners of each category of excellence and the pioneer prizes. So it's quite a long process, but it's an exciting process to be involved in, and lots of learning. And this is what it's all about. At the same time, we also run the other awards, so do have a look at them. They're a little bit more rigorous, but generally they follow the same process. And you can see generally they're mainly running from May to August. But again, it's better to get your entries in as soon as possible to benefit from for the cheaper fees. Okay, I think I'm now passing over back to Dr. Almas. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Robin. Thank you so much. So I'll be taking you through the 3 main stages of the IBPC application: the writing an application, delivering a presentation, participating in Q&A. But for this particular session webinar, we'll be only speaking about writing an application, because delivery of the presentation, the guidelines and guidance session will be shared with you once we are at that stage of the competition. So next slide, please.
Sorry, I've gone to sleep.
No problem. So yeah, so for writing an application, the main agenda for the writing an application, the scope of this application is you have to present a 5-page application, which is divided into 3 sections. Section 1 is on the title and type of best practice. Section 2 is the backbone of your entire application process. And then section 3 is your contact details. Next. Yeah, so section 1, the title of the best practice, it should be a little short, like 8 words or less, because then we can accommodate the title in the certificates and the badges, because if it's too long, it's a little difficult to accommodate. Section 1.2 is you have to choose the categories for which you think your best practice is applicable for. I mean, you don't have to worry a lot about this, because the ultimate decision for the best categories that your best practice fits in it lies with the IBPC committee. So you can choose 3 for the initial phase of the best practice, but ultimately the committee will think which is the best for you. For section 2, we'll be speaking at length about it for the guidance and the tips. So these are the 6 sections. This is the application form. This is a screenshot of the application form, and we'll be speaking about it. Next slide, please. So these are the 6 subsections which decides your best practice, the star ratings for your best practice, the assessment criteria. So first is the clarity of the best practice, level of deployment, level of innovation, best practice performance, that is your results, best practice evidence, and review next steps plan. So for next slide, please. So this is a general structure, this is a general guideline of how you should structure your application. So as I said, it should be 5 pages and Calibri font size 10. This is for section 2. So you must be thinking, how can we accommodate so much in 5 pages? But yes, it's possible if you use those pages wisely. Generally, if you apply like 3/4 page of single page for one section, you can accommodate all the information in those 5 pages. And you can also include relevant pictures, which are clearly which highlight your best practice, relevant pictures, and use high quality images and illustrations. So if you follow these general guidelines to structure, I think you're good to go with 5 pages. Next. So these are the general tips for the entire application, do's and don'ts. So you can go through it. As we said, we'll be providing you the PDF of this presentation and also the video recording. So you can go through it at your own pace. But for now, we can only say that you have to be very clear when you're presenting your best practice. Like, for example, you don't have to leave any room for ambiguity. The judges, the jury should read your application and say, okay, we've understood it and we can, provide it a star rating. For example, being factual, being objective in your presentation is very important. So instead of just saying that the older process negatively impacted the service delivery, you could provide facts and data for that to support it. The other thing is always label your diagrams and refer it back in the content so the jury knows where to, refer it in the entire application. For highly technical terms and jargons, always make sure that you explain them, and for acronyms, provide full forms. Next, avoid repeating the same information in different sections, because sometimes we tend to, repeat information thinking that it might impress the judges, but it happens. It actually happens the contrary, because they might get a little, that the same thing is being repeated. And English is the medium of communication. Unless you have a social media post in which it is a different language, then it's a different case. But always make sure that English is your language and communication in your applications. Next. So clarity of the best practice. You can go through the questions that are for this section. And this is an example of an ideal application and what should be avoided. So in the left, if you read later, you'll find that when we read the first sentence, our best practices, it's absolutely clear. There is no confusion about what the best practice is, because the entire application is, dependent on how you define your best practice. You have to articulate it very well, very clearly. And if you see on the right, if you read the definition, it's incomprehensible. You cannot decipher anything out of it. So you should avoid that. Next slide, please. This is the scope and out of scope section where you have to, when you're presenting your best practice, you have to define what is your scope and out of scope of the best practice. For example, if you are presenting a best practice in the HR department, okay, so you have to explain in the scope and out of scope whether you have in that best practice, whether the entire human resource force was included in the best practice, or it was just the full-timers, or even full-timers, part-timers, everybody was part of the best practice. Like it was applicable to the full-timers and part-timers. So this is just one example. And you have to you have to set the boundaries also, that what was included, what was the inclusions and exclusions of the best practice. So yeah, so this is important. General tips for section 2.1 description is you can go through it later, but then what as you jury members, what I could learn from over the years is, it's very important to provide context. For example, if you're presenting a best practice, you don't have to just say that we implemented this. Why was it implemented? Were there some challenges prior to the implementation of the best practice that motivated the leadership to think, okay, we need such and such best practice, we need to improve our systems? Or were there any opportunities, technological opportunities, that you thought that our organization might go in the right direction if we improve this? So challenges and opportunities, you have to think of it and put it in the application. Next. The section 2.2 is level of deployment, which is your implementation execution. Here you have to focus on, next slide, please. Yeah, here you have to focus on how you ran the whole show, like how you actually executed the entire plan from day one, when you thought that, we want to have such and such a improvement or transformation, how you executed it over the period of years or months. So a timeline, process, flow chart, or, a chronology of the milestones, tables providing the details, who were the people involved, what resources were needed, what decisions were made. So if you think of all that and provide a clear, systematic chronology of events, that will be a big thumbs up for the application. And for level of deployment, it's also important to include what resources were used in terms of manpower, technology. How did you use social media? If you were creating, if you had some initiative which required public awareness, so how did you conduct the public awareness campaigns? Did you conduct any lectures or courses for your in-house training? Like if there was some transformation happening, like for example, digital transformation, did your staff need to undergo some training or retraining, upskilling, reskilling? So all of that needs to be added in your application. As a general feedback we could just give you that when you're writing anything, just don't, everything should not be text. It should be, as we said, it should be data based and use of images and dates. So for example, if you see the timeline over here, there are no dates. So the written matter is not as credible as it could have been if there was a timeline associated and details of it. So you should avoid general blanket statements and provide more factual and credible information to support your say. General tips. We would just like to say, if you have been employing a best practice, whether it is complete or it is still in the implementation phase, or it's ongoing, or when will it be completed, you have to include that information as well. And for the innovation section, section 2.3, these are the questions. So this section mainly focuses on the wow factor of your best practice. Next section, please. So your best practice need not be something very revolutionary or avant-garde, that nobody has done in the world. It could be, definitely it could be. But then if it is not, it is a very, common, mundane process in your organization. But what was your approach to it, to improve it, to make it outstanding? That is what the jury wants to know. So if you see in the left side example, you can see how this was a very common process, and how it was changed. It was transformed from 16 to 19 steps to just 3 steps. So that is really very, mind-boggling, that how could that happen? So that entire process, what innovative, ideas that your organization applied to move from 19 to 3. So that could be an innovation. That could be a lot of, brainstorming and team building activities and whatever. So you can include those innovative best practices information over here. As we can see on the right, there is too much written content, but there is nothing which, if you read it, there's nothing which is, which stands out or makes it a wow thing, that, okay, this is something which is not seen in the region, country, or world. So you have to focus on, clearly explaining your innovation, and use of images is a big, big help. So yeah. So next. So generally, you can see the do's and don'ts over here. But what I like the most about the innovation section is, if an applicant shows that how have they, how are they performing in comparison to the other countries in their region, or all over the world, or within their country, or maybe in the same industry or outside the industry, how do they compare, and what is the innovative in comparison to them, in comparison to others? So that is really what the judges look for in innovation. And sometimes organizations, yeah, the next, now Dr. Robin will move to the best practice performance section, and he will take us through the rest of the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alma. So we just got a few more sections to go. The performance section is next. This section is actually very, very critical. So if you're an organization wanting to get 5 stars, 6 stars, or 7 stars, then you need to show performance results. You need to show what the difference of best practices made to your organization. And you can show, ideally, you'll show your results in 2 ways. One, in terms of non-financial metrics, which might be on more sort of operational measures, and then also in terms of financial benefits, in terms of saving money for your organization. It could be saving money for your citizens if you're a government entity. But we really need metrics here. We need trend data. We need to be able to see before and after performance. So make sure that this is sometimes we don't get that information in this section. So automatically the judges will unlikely to be scoring you 5 stars and above. So ideally you'd be sharing some graphs. So with that trend data, particularly showing before and after performance. So we have the example on the left, which is good. Lots of visual information. It's easy to understand. And on the right is just written information. Often sometimes saying they've done very well, improvements has improved, but without actually data to support that. Tables are also good, but not as good as graphs. Sometimes to share a lot of information, you might want to share a table, because you couldn't, maybe if you've got 10 metrics, 10 metrics, all directly related to the best practice, then you might want to show them as a table and then highlight 3 or 4 as a graph, because you couldn't probably have 10 graphs. But otherwise, generally, graphs are better. At the same time, you do need to think about whether those performance metrics are relevant. So sometimes we do get overwhelmed with graphs, we do get overwhelmed with tables, but then when we look at the tables and we look at the graphs, the relevance to the best practice is not clear. They don't seem directly related. So, we're looking for the direct line between what you've described as a best practice in that description section, and then in terms of the results achieved. It's really, you're telling a story through the application. So sometimes if I was in your shoes writing a best practice or thinking about submitting a best practice, I'll be thinking, what do we have good results in inside of our organization? Where can we demonstrate good results? And then work back and say, well, what best practice is delivering those results? And that becomes your best practice application. Again, we've got do's and don'ts on here, but you can read this for yourself. And I think I've made these points anyway, so you'll have access to these slides later on. We then move to best practice evidence. Again, another very important area, because if you're trying to demonstrate you've got an international best practice, you need to provide evidence. Evidence can come in a number of formats. One format could be comparing benchmark performance. Another format could be your best practices being peer reviewed. Maybe you've already achieved some recognition for your best practice. Maybe you've been invited to conferences to give presentations on your best practice. Maybe your practice has been audited and there's been favorable comments with respect to that practice. So there's various types of evidence that can be provided here. Obviously, if you have got performance data and can show performance is stronger than other organizations, then that's great, but that's often very, very difficult to do. You can't always find like-to-like measures. In this example, there was for this example here for introducing drive-through testing centres and showing that UAE at that particular time was testing more people for COVID than anywhere else in the world. And then they could also show as best practice evidence how they'd compared their process against a Korean model for a drive-through screening centre or testing centre and improved on their particular process. So you can actually use benchmarking with 2 perspectives, that one organization is benchmarks against you, or when you put in place the best practice, you've done some benchmarking in terms of developing your own best practices, so that now you believe they're at least superior to what you'd learned from other organizations. Again, if you have achieved some awards and recognition for that particular practice, please do share those awards and recognition. Again, we understand for very new best practices that might be unlikely. So this is why it's always important to share the context of the best practice, when it was developed, etc., so the jury can make a considered opinion on it. But what you don't do is just share all the awards your organization has won for anything, because that are even unrelated to your best practice, because then the jury will think, will not necessarily trust what you're saying in the application. They'll think you're trying to, I don't know what the word would be, confuse them or influence them to give them a high rating when it's unjustified. So the jury, if they see you're providing information that's unrelated, generally they'll mark you down. So the jury are all experienced jury members. So make sure the awards that you're sharing are related to the best practice. Sometimes awards are related to the best practice, but it's not clear why they're related. So again, you've got to explain in the application, if the name is slightly different to your best practice, but you think it's strongly related, you've got to explain why it is related so the jury members understand. Again, we have some do's here. Testimonials from suppliers, customers can also help you here. Again, if you give presentations at conferences, very good, would help. Any press releases as well can help. Okay. The final section is on the review and sustainability of the best practice. To be a best practice, the jury need to have confidence that your best practice will be sustainable and it's been continually assessed and reviewed and refined. So you need to provide evidence for that. So again, we have some do's and don't. This generally is not going to be the major determinant of whether you get a 7 stars or not, but you've got to have something of substance in here. I think for a 7-star best practice, the key elements are innovation, performance, and best practice evidence. The description section and deployment section set the best practice up so the assessors, the jury members understand it, and the final review section is basically again giving the confidence to the jury that you're going to move. This is going to be sustained. So what we want is not sort of very generic comments in this section. We want detail to be assured. The jury members need to be assured that you are constantly reviewing this best practice. It also, if you identify further opportunities for improvement, that's a good thing. If you identify what's still going a little bit wrong with it, it's a good thing. It means you're transparent. The jury members understand it more. And then you can explain, well, what are you going to be implementing in the future to address that performance gap? So on the right-hand side, if you do show clearly what will be happening in the future with a timeline, this will support your case. So with that, I think we've covered quite a lot in quite a short period of time. So that's really the key elements of what you need to do in a written application, what you need to share. Obviously, you need to share your contact details, but I think we just want to get across the main purpose of this competition is to be an enjoyable competition, to embrace this competition. It's a learning opportunity. Don't take it too seriously. Some people take it so seriously they don't get 5 stars, 6 stars, or 7 stars. That's not the point of this. It's a learning opportunity. I mean, even if you deserve 7 stars, sometimes it doesn't happen. I mean, it's just a way of life. So everybody's doing their best. My team do our best in supporting you. You have the jury members doing their best in being independent, and you're doing your best as well, making this competition have a lot of vitality and, as I say, helping everybody to improve, not just yourselves. So, as I say, we also have the other 3 awards too. So please take a look at them if you're interested in them. The last thing I want to share is on the early bird entry fees. So the deadline is the 3rd of March to qualify for the early bird entry fee. And we encourage you, if you can, to submit your application by the 3rd of March. But if you can't do that and you still want to take advantage of the early bird entry fees, you can actually just pay the early bird entry fee and specify what best practice you will be submitting. Or you can even do that for 2 or 3 best practices. So you can still take advantage of the early bird fees without actually submitting the written application. As long as we get the written application before the final closing date, which I think will be in early May, but we'll pre-warn you of that, then you'll be fine. But I wouldn't suggest you wait till the end of May, because the sooner you submit still is the better, because we provide feedback and you can then act on that feedback to improve your application. The other thing, if you somehow can't pay by the 3rd of March, that's fine too, but in that case, you'd have to submit the written application. And then you'd also need to write to me or write to the committee and say, we can't pay by the 3rd of March, because we understand for some organizations, you've got to get permission from your finance department or senior executives. So we can understand in some cases that can't be done, but at least then we need your written application and an email to us. And also, but then we still need your written, we'll still need your payment within 20 to 21 days of the 3rd of March. So there's a little bit of additional timeline for you to actually pay the fee. And we can provide you a best practice approval letter as well if you require that to get some more support for paying the fee for your best practice. So with that, we wish you all the best. It's been an enjoyable journey for us all, as I'm sure, as it always is. So we wish you the best of luck. And now we've got a little bit of time for any Q&A. So if you have got any questions, that would be wonderful. If you participated in the competition, would like to share your experience, that would be wonderful too. So, yep, it's a free for all. Anybody, any questions? You can just unmic yourself and ask a question.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Neeraj from India.
Hi.
Should I turn my camera on?
It's up to you. I'd like to see you.
Okay. Okay, I've turned my camera on. So what I wanted to check is, sorry, I was not able to attend the session. I manage business excellence for my organization, business excellence, which we follow the EFQM 2025 model. What I want to know, what is the, you have any detailed brochure or a literature which will give me an understanding of how should we articulate what are the steps that we have to cover while detailing about the process and for the competition, and of course the fees, etc., all that. Do we have detailed literature or a brochure for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all on the International Best Practice Competition website. So you just need to go to the website. Everything is there.
Okay.
There's also a brochure on the website which you can download. And you can also download the entry form. So I think that's the first port of call.
Okay.
But again, if you want any additional help or a presentation or information just to your organization, we're welcome for any of my team to support you in that.
Oh, got it. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Do we have any comments from any jury members? I see a few jury members here today. Any comments from jury members who experienced a competition before?
Robin, I have a question, if I may. Do you publish the applications, like on the website, for instance, afterwards?
They're all inside the BPR.com website resource. We publish a few winners on the International Best Practice Competition website, but all of them go into the BPR.com. And so all participants will have access to all of them.
Yeah, but the outside public wouldn't, or would?
No, they can access. We usually have one or two videos. You can see the winner videos, I think, on the International Best Practice Competition website. There will be a couple of winner videos.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay,
not maybe not the written applications, but the winner videos are available. A few of them. I could send an email around that later on, or Dr. Almas could share it in chat right now.
Mr. Willie, I think we take permissions before publishing the content. So if any organization is a little hesitant, so you can convey that to us. But then that factor should not deter you from participating, because it's about your recognition and your organization. So it is only published.
I think you're just asking whether they're publicly available, Almas. That's all. But they're not. The majority are inside the BPR.com, but there are a few of them on the Best Practice Competition website that are freely available.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we also publish some. We have some blogs as well on the BPR.com where we highlight some of them too. And but yes, this is the opportunity would be really to take more advantage of those, I guess, and share them even more widely. We do a lot of social media as well, and where we highlight aspects of the best practices. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left. Anything else? I see, Dr. Atif, do you want to share your experience of being a jury member at all?
Yes, why not? I think, I joined IBPC, I think 2020. And since then, Robin, I see the improvement in the application, quality of competition. And I think this is great opportunity for organizations to present their good work and learn from others. I think this is very unique aspect of bpir.com that comes with the competition. So it's not only that you actually participate in the competition, but you get access to bpi.com that gives you more, access to information that can help you to improve performance. So it's really great experience for me as a jury member. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and if anybody here can help us to promote the competition even more, we'd be grateful for your support too. The more organisations that participate, the better, and say the more we all learn together. Okay, I think that's it. Last opportunity for somebody to say something, otherwise we'll close this session. There will be another session tomorrow at a different time, trying to track people from a different time zone. And I think you'll find that time on the website too, if you know of people who might want to join a session like this. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And I look forward to your participation.
Dr. Robin, there's a query from Afzal Lakotel.
What's the query?
We have won few excellence awards for those submissions. We have included our best practices. So can we mention it in section 2.5?
Only if when you've won those excellence awards, and there has to be strong related to your best practice. So if you've won excellence awards, which are obviously more holistic than a specific best practice, then I think you could say you've won an excellence award, and in that excellence award, they highlighted your best practice as a contributor. If otherwise, then don't mention the excellence award. The best practice has to be strongly related to the award. So yes, you can mention you won a Best Business Excellence Award if, when you achieve that Business Excellence Award, that best practice was highlighted as a major contributor to it, or there's a comment about it. Because otherwise, if you don't have something like that, you just say, well, we should win the best practice. We should be recognized for a best practice because we've won a Business Excellence Award, which is wrong. You need to be recognized specifically for your best practice, and nothing else. Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, I think we'll close the session. Thank you so much indeed. Take care, everybody. It's late here in New Zealand.
All the best.
Time to relax here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.